Hey guys, today I'm going to show you my arcade nested wheel. Enjoy.
Arcades. Choose from a vast collection of arcade games. Starting. Introducing Hyperspin. Believe the hype. MAME, an acronym of Multiple Arcade Machine Emulator, is an emulator application designed to recreate the hardware of classic arcade game systems and software on modern personal computers and other platforms. The intention is to preserve gaming history by preventing vintage games from being lost or forgotten. The aim of MAME is to be a reference to the inner workings of the emulated arcade machines. The ability to actually play the games is considered a nice side effect. The first public MAME release 0.1 was on February 5, 1997, by Nicola Samaria. The emulator now supports over 7,000 unique games and 10,000 actual ROM image sets. Though not all of the supported games are playable. Dice. Dice is a discrete logic simulator for old arcade games without a CPU. It works by simulating each logic chip on the board individually. The first game to be simulated was Pong, followed by Atari Rebound, Atari Gotcha, and Space Race. AAE. AAE is a primarily vector-based arcade system emulator/simulator. It strives to recreate the experience of playing the games as they were in the arcade, and requires the original game ROMs in order to run. In some cases, copies of the original sound files and artwork are required to complete the emulation experience. It provides for simulation options that are not available in MAME. and offers several features that are not available in MAME due to their arcade preservation charter, such as advanced hardware-based drawing and motion blur. Although AAE is written to feel much like the MAME documentation project, it is a very different emulator, based in part on sources from the old emulator Retrocade. Daphne. Daphne is an arcade emulator application that emulates a variety of laserdisc video games with the intent of preserving these games and making the play experience as faithful to the originals as possible. The developer calls Daphne the first ever multiple arcade laserdisc emulator female. The software is available for Microsoft Windows, Linux, and Mac OS X operating systems, and consists of a command line emulator with a graphical front end to make configuring and launching easier. Daphne is capable of displaying the game's full motion video by playing MPEG video files on the computer or by driving certain models of Laserdisc player directly via a serial interface. As with other arcade machine emulators, ROM images are also required to play the games. These may be ROM images from the original arcade machines, or alternatively fans of two of the most popular Laserdisc arcade games, Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, have created updated ROMs that alter the gameplay, correct bugs, and reintroduce removed sequences. Capcom Play System. CPS-1 is an arcade system board developed by Capcom that ran game software stored on removable ROM cartridges. More than 24 arcade titles were released for CPS-1, before Capcom shifted game development over to its successor. SNK Neo Geo MVS. The Neo Geo is a cartridge-based arcade system board and home video game console released on January 31, 1990 by Japanese game company SNK. Being in the fourth generation of gaming, it was the first system in the former Neo Geo family, which only lived through the 1990s. The hardware featured comparatively colorful 2D graphics. The MVS, or multi-video system, as the Neo Geo was known to the coin-operated arcade game industry, offered arcade operators the ability to put up to 6 different arcade titles into a single cabinet, a key economic consideration for operators with limited floor space. With its games stored on self-contained cartridges, a game cabinet could be exchanged for a different game title by swapping the game's ROM cartridge and cabinet artwork. Several popular franchises. Sega Model 2. The Sega Model 2 is an arcade system board released by Sega in 1993. Like the Model 1, it was developed in cooperation with Martin Marietta, and was a further advancement of the earlier Model 1 system. The most noticeable improvement was texture mapping, which enabled polygons to be painted with bitmap images, as opposed to the limited monotone flat shading that Model 1 supported. Despite its high price tag, the Model 2 platform was very successful. It featured some of the highest grossing arcade games of all time: Daytona USA, Virtua Fighter 2, Virtual On Cyber Troopers, The House of the Dead, and Dead or Alive, to name a few. Sega Model 3. The Sega Model 3 is an arcade system board released by Sega in 1996. It was the final culmination of Sega's partnership with Lockheed Martin, using the company's REAL 3D division to design the graphical hardware. Upon release, the Model 3 was easily the most powerful arcade system board in existence, capable of over 1 million polygons per second. The hardware went through several steppings, which increased the clock speed of the CPU, as well as minor changes to the board architecture. Well-known Model 3 games include Virtua Fighter 3, Sega Super GT, Harley-Davidson and LA Riders, Sega Bass Fishing, Daytona USA 2, Sega Rally 2, and the Ocean Hunter, although it is the rarest of them. Sega S.TV. The Sega S.TV was an arcade system board released by Sega in 1995. Departing from their usual process of building custom arcade hardware, Sega's S.TV is essentially identical to the Sega Saturn home console system. The only difference is the media. S.TV used ROM cartridges instead of CD-ROMs to store games. Cave. The Cave CV1000 is the third-generation arcade hardware from Cave. The Cave CV1000 hardware was used in all arcade games released by Cave from Musha Himsama in 2004 through Dudonpachi Saidio Yuju in 2012, with the exception of Death Smiles 2. The Cave CV1000 is also known as Cave S.H3 hardware, due to the arcade system being powered by a Hitachi S.H3 CPU. There were two versions of the Cave CV1000, the CV1000B, which is the original PCB first released with Musha Himsama, and the CV1000D with more RAM, first released with Dudonpachi Daifukatsu. Capcom CPS-3. CPS-3 is an arcade system board that was first used by Capcom in 1996 with the arcade game RETD Earth. It was the second successor to the CP System arcade hardware, following the CP System 2. It would be the last proprietary system board Capcom would produce before moving to the more common Taito Type X system boards used in Japan. Zinc. Zinc is an emulator for arcade video games based on Sony PlayStation hardware. This includes systems from Capcom, Taito, Naomi, Tecmo WW, and Namco, among others. These games are also supported in MAME, but Zinc can frequently run them faster and with graphics and sound enhancements. Sega Naomi. First demonstrated in 1998 at JAMA, the Sega Naomi, which is abbreviation of New Arcade Operation Machine Idea, is the successor to the Sega Model 3 hardware. A development of the Dreamcast home game console, the Naomi and Dreamcast share the same hardware components: Hitachi S.H4 CPU, Power VR Series 2 GPU, and Yamaha AICA-based sound system. Naomi has twice as much system memory, twice as much video memory, and 4 times as much sound memory. Multiple Naomi boards can be stacked together to improve graphics performance, or to support multiple monitor output. A special game cabinet for the Naomi, Naomi Universal Cabinet, houses up to 16 boards for this purpose. The other key difference between Naomi and Dreamcast lies in the game media. The Dreamcast reads game data from G.DRAM optical disc, while the Naomi arcade board features 168 MB of solid-state ROMs or G.DROMs using a custom DIMM board and G.DRAM drive. In operation, Sega Hikaru. The Sega Hikaru is a successor of the Sega Naomi and Sega Model 3 arcade systems that was developed in 1998 and debuted in 1999. The Hikaru was used for a handful of deluxe dedicated cabinet games, beginning with 1999's Brave Firefighters, in which the flame and water effects were largely a showpiece for the hardware. It was significantly more powerful and expensive than the Naomi. The Hikaru featured a custom Sega GPU with advanced graphical capabilities, additional CPU and sound processors, various custom processors, increased memory, and faster bandwidth. It was the first game platform capable of effective hardware Phong shading, the most intensive form of shading at the time, and was capable of the most complex lighting and particle effects of its time. Sega Triforce.
Bowser, problems with your car?
The Triforce is an arcade system board developed jointly by Namco, Sega, and Nintendo, with the first games appearing in 2002. The name Triforce is a reference to Nintendo's Legend of Zelda series of games, and symbolized the 3 companies' involvement in the project. The system hardware is based on the Nintendo GameCube with several differences, like provisions for add-ons such as Sega's G.DRAM system and upgradable RAM modules. Sammy Atomiswave. The Atomiswave is a custom arcade system board and cabinet from Sammy Corporation. It is based on Sega's Naomi system board, thus it's common to see the Sega logo on its boot-up screen. The Atomiswave uses interchangeable game cartridges and the cabinet's control panel can be easily switched out with different control sets, including dual joysticks, dual light guns, and a steering wheel. With the retirement of the aging Neo Geo MVS system, SNK Playmore chose the Atomiswave as its next system to develop games for. In a contract with Sammy, SNK Playmore agreed to develop 5 games for the Atomiswave system. Metal Slug 6 was SNK Playmore's 5th game for the Atomiswave, after which SNK moved on to a Taito Type X2 arcade board. Taito Type X. The Taito Type X is an arcade system board released by Taito Corporation in 2004. Based on commodity PC hardware architecture, Type X is not a specification for a single set of hardware, but rather a modular platform supporting multiple hardware configurations with different levels of graphical capability. This flexibility allows game developers limited choice in selecting a configuration to fit the game's specific requirements, and allows the platform as a whole to more efficiently support gaming titles with vastly different computing needs. Bliss Box.